Hey, welcome to the channel, everybody, and Astrophotography with the ASIAir Part 1. Now, I did it in two parts because there's a lot of ground to cover, and I didn't want to cram too much information in one video and have it drag on for a long period of time. So in this one, we're going to be covering how to do a polar alignment and how to focus using the algorithm that comes with the ASIAir. I'll be covering a few other things in this video also that I didn't cover in the second one. In the other video, we're doing focusing using a more traditional method, a Bahtinov mask, and plate solving, and how to stack your images and shoot flats. So you're going to want to see that one after you check this one out at some point. So what do you say we jump right into it? So first we're going to open up the app. And enter device. They're looking for a firmware update. And when you know it, right when we're in the middle of this thing, isn't this typical? I don't know if it allows me to cancel, but apparently not. So we're going to have to stop it right there and update it. Maybe it won't take too long. That's another aspect, I suppose. Every now and then you get into this thing and they want to update the firmware. So as you can see, it's pretty simple. Just make sure you have a good internet connection. And you're going to want to do that firmware update before you connect to the ASIAir. When you first get one of these things, that could be kind of a tricky thing because they want you in the air and then you got to get out of the air in order to do any updates. So you just want to keep that in mind. So if you've got a good internet connection, hopefully it won't take that long. While we're waiting for this thing to download and install, let's go over some of the equipment we have here tonight. So I've got one of the more popular Zwo cams, the ASI 533 MC color cam, great cam. Inside I've got a filter drawer here, and I've got an Atlantia tri-band that works really good with the ASI 533. So basically it's hydrogen alpha, O3, and S2, which is kind of neat and pretty affordable, really. So this is a William Optics Z73, beautiful scope, very well constructed, highly recommended. It's Taiwanese manufactured, comes with a unique built-in Bahtinov mask. If you want to do traditional focusing, that's a great way of doing it. And you'll see it at the observatory. It also has a camera rotator built in here and with degrees, which is really, really great. We can get into that here tonight to show you how to use the camera rotator built into the ASIAir. Now I have an ASIAir Mini. Okay, it's really small. You can get the Pro and it has a few more features like how to regulate the electricity and things like that. It also has USB 3.0, which if you're going to be using it for planetary imaging, that kind of helps because of the higher transfer speed rate. You're going to be able to capture more frames per second than if you were using the standard 2. That's the big thing. When it comes to planetary imaging, it's all about what they call lucky imaging. So you're trying to capture frames between the distortions in the seeing. And so the more you can slice that second up, the better chances you get that little micro sub-second of perfect seeing. And then you grab all of those, a percentage of those, and you stack them. And I'll have a video here on Dakota Starry Nights on how to do that. It's planetary imaging. Check it out. I cover it soup to nuts, so I won't get any deeper than that. So now they're saying that the firmware transferred, firmware installed, restart ASI failed, update failed, tap to retry. So let's see what that does. Let's see. Please retry after opening the app or rebooting the ASIAir. You know what I think it is? I think it is because we're on a different network, and that's why it's not connecting. What I have to do here, it looks like to me, okay, so we want to come into the settings on your tablet once you download that, and get into your network, get into this, and see what else. See, now we got to connect to the ASIAir. And so we connect to the air, and I think then we'll be able to do the firmware update. So we'll tap into the air, and now it says it is good, 100%, next, and there we are. So that's a great example on what you might run into, real problem right there, and that's what it was. Once you connect to the internet and you do the firmware download, you're going to want to get into your air so you can get into transferring that firmware update to the air. Okay, so here we are with this setup, and it shows the location and in latitude and longitude. It's also showing that the mount is as well AM5, and the main scope is 343. That's with the focal reducer now. The guide scope is at 210, and the camera is a ASI 533 MC Pro, and our guide cam is ASI 174 Mono. Now that that's checked out, we're going to get into the program and hit enter. Always check that, because especially if you have multiple platforms, you might find that one little thing, like the focal length, for instance, that one will get you, because if you don't get the focal length right, it can't plate solve properly. So definitely check that. So here we are in the preview mode. So now what we want to do to check our focus, we'll do a quick exposure. We'll come here to 30 seconds. And we'll do a 2-second exposure. We'll hit that. Now this is just to see if there's any stars in the field, okay? Plenty of stars in the field. With a focal length like this, you can't go wrong. It looks like our stars are relatively focused. So now what we're gonna do, we're gonna go over to focus, hit on that, and up at the top, we hit focus, and we'll do a 2-second exposure, and it should cycle through. So what you would do, you would move this around to whatever star you want to zoom in on. Now I'm going to, let's see, zoom in on this little guy, because I think this other one is just a little too big. And then over here, if you come to the left, you click on zoom, okay? And there it is. Now, the goal here is to get that upper number as low as possible. I typically don't really pay any attention to the lower number. I just pay attention to that upper number. I let it shoot a little bit to see where it's averaging out. And it's averaging out around 6. Anywhere between 6 and 5.9, 5.8. So 6. So what we're going to try to do is move this till we can get that number below 5.8. I'm going to use the 10-to-1 and move it towards me a little bit and see what that number does. Now that obviously put it out of focus. We know we got to go in now, so we're going to just turn it a little bit and see if we can get it to sweeten up, tighten up a little bit. Now we're down to 6.2. Now keep in mind, use your 10-to-1 in small increments. So we're at 6.8 right now, 6.8. So we're going to go a little lower at 5.7, 5.6. Okay, now we're below 5, which is excellent. We're definitely tightening it up here. So we're at 4.8, 4.7, 3.1, 2.57, 2.71. I'm calling it. I think we're pretty good there. So I'm going to lock the focuser down. Okay, so I'm locked down. You can continue to do that and to where you go past the low point and then come back. We're going to stop this. Okay, so we focused using the algorithm. The next step now is to do a polar alignment. So we come over here where it says PA and tap on that. Now what it's going to do, it's going to plate solve its way to the pole. So it's going to take a picture and then take another one and then tell you what the error is. And right now it's absolutely clear up there. And fortunately in this location, I got a nice clear view of Polaris. So to start the process, you hit the play button. And I'm doing a 5-second down here where it says exposure, EXP. That will depend on your scope, your optics, your filter, what have you. And by the way, we are in focus for that tri-band filter. If I was to take that tri-band filter out, I'd have to refocus. Now it says plate solve took 2.8 seconds. We go next. And it's going to take a 5-second sub. And see, now it's moving. It will move in right ascension in order to take another image. 235 stars. Okay, so now to calculate, you hit let's go. And now you see where you are in relationship to the pole. And the error is 6 minutes, 21 seconds in 58 minutes and 6 seconds. The total error is 58 minutes and 27 seconds. Now, what's nice about this is that it tells you which way to move the mount. So it's telling us that the mount needs to come down and it also needs to go east. I usually take one axis at a time. And up at the top, you see a face that obviously doesn't look like he's too happy. Depending on your mount, you know, you'll have to unlock different things and I'm going to hit refresh. So it'll take another picture and determine where we're at. So keep in mind your error to see if you got better or worse. 27, it got worse, so I probably went too much. So we're going to go, let's see, we're going to go back the other way, take another one. The more you do it, the better you get at it. It wants me to go up another little bit. It's best to do it in small increments so you don't overshoot it. Especially with this, when you're doing this altitude or alt, it's best to go in because you're taking out slack rather than come out. So you want your final steps to be in if you can. There's a couple of guys I image with, and you know, we sometimes compete to see who could do it faster. And if we can get that down to single digits on the minutes, I think that will be good enough, especially at this focal length. If it was a longer focal length, you really have to get it pretty close because the error will read. It's one of the great things about imaging in the shorter focal lengths, and I highly recommend it if you're starting out. Start out with the shorter focal lengths so you can learn the trade. Otherwise, if you start out with a longer, like a Schmidt-Cassegrain 2000 up in there, it becomes tough because you know you got to learn a lot of stuff and you need to be more accurate. We're down to 1 minute. So I'm thinking, guys, I'm going to call that. So now we're going to line it in azimuth, you might say. It's saying we need to go east, so you've got two dials on this one. I'm not going to get into what dials to use because that's going to depend on your mount, but basically the step is to move the way it's asking you to. And now we'll do a refresh. See if that made it better. It's at 58. 35, it did get better. We'll turn it a little bit more. Having the arrows really helps. It kind of shows you what direction you need to go. Some of the other earlier softwares, it wasn't so clear and it was kind of difficult from time to time. This plate solving technique is just awesome. 21, got a little better. Try that. So I got the smiley face. When you get the smiley face, you're good. You're good enough. You won't get the smiley face when you only do one. So when I did the upper one, it was at 2 minutes, which was pretty good. He didn't smile yet because I had to get the lower one. So once I get the smiley face, I call it. We're polar aligned. And that looks really good. We got the smiley face. So from there, we lock this down and lock it down on this side. And that's it. And you're polar aligned. It's really great with this algorithm that they give you here, the ASIAir. I highly recommend it if you're starting out for features like this. Okay, so now that that's done, we click on that. We say finish. Okay, and then we come over to live. Okay, Okay, so let's take a look at some of the information we have here at the top you might be curious about. If we start with the Wi-Fi signal, it shows that the Wi-Fi signal that's being put out is a walker, ASIAir walker. Now, you can get into the app and change that name. If you're imaging with a couple of guys, or you just want to have your own name for the Wi-Fi, because a lot of times if there's 2 or 3 airs and they pop up, you might see somebody else's air. So to make sure it's yours, you click on this here and you just click on that, and then you can type that in, whatever you want. And you can also change your password. So we're just going to say done, and we'll come out of that. Next to that is the camera. Now the camera, it shows the gain and the camera, and I've got it at 101, which is recommended for the 533. It's just 1/100. The main scope focal length is 343, and the cooling temperature. Now you want to set this, make sure it's set to the temperature you want, and I've got it set at -10 now. So it's a good thing I checked that. And you can turn it on and off by sliding that green thing. Over here we have the Zwo ASI 174 guide cam, and we have the gain set and the focal length and the calibration steps and stuff. And you can also click auto restore calibration. I usually leave that off because I like to calibrate when I change positions in the sky. There's some other advanced things here. You can bin the guide cam if you want. The dark library is off in this case. We need to build a dark library. To do that, we'll need to cover the scope. And it's covered. I'm going to turn this light off so I don't flood that with light, and then we'll say build. And it'll do it automatically, build your dark library. So now that we've got a dark library built, and you saw how easy it was to build it, we'll take our cover off our guide scope. Okay, and let's go down to the next one, which is the mount icon. And down on the bottom is the go to home position. So whenever you're done in the evening, you want to come to this mount icon that will probably be on the top at first. So let's go see, to be like here, you're done with the evening, and so you're going to want to click on that and then click on go to home, and that'll park the mount for you. This is also capable of doing sequencing, but I'm not going to get into that because what I just want to cover is to get you up and running and to be able to pull down some really nice data. And then as you go along and you get more proficient at it, you can sort those things out. It's not too complicated, especially after you've got some good experience under your belt. Okay, and then over here, this is where your storage is. Let's go over to here where it says capture image management. So if you click on that, this is your guiding dark library. Here's your preview, this is your video, your auto run, if you're which would be sequencing, and over here would be your live stacks. I get into that the other video in part 2 of astrophotography with the ASIair, and you have your dark library, and also I get into that, about what that needs to be, and your bias frames and your light frames and your flats. Okay, and that is the current flat, but that flat is no longer any good because we went ahead and changed the focus. Let's move on to the light frames. These are all the light frames, so whenever you take a target, it will save them in a folder and name it. And if you told it to save the subs, it will save the individual subs. I get into that in the part 2 on when that is desirable and when it may not be necessary. So for planetary, okay, so we're going to go back to here, and now we're going to come over to here, and if you wanted to do planetary imaging, you would click on the video, and then it would run a video and show you what the frame rate is at that point. Now it's not showing any stars because planets tend to be pretty bright, and we would have to adjust the image accordingly. And then if you click over here, this will increase or decrease your exposure to where you get it just right. I don't think there's any planets up right now, so I don't think I can demonstrate that. But that's what you would do. Right now it is doing 29 frames a second, and you would see the planet right there somewhere, and then once you like where it is, you would hit the red button and start doing video recording. If you want to know the ins and outs on how to do that, again, I've got a video here on Dakota Starry Nights, which really gets into this in great detail. But that's where you would go if you wanted to do planetary imaging. So let's click on that and go over to preview. So let's go to a target. Let's go over to the bottom. You'll see the Big Dipper on the lower left, and it shows us where we're at. So now we can do a search over lower left in the middle, go to objects. Let's go over here to the funnel and tell it we want something that's at least 55 degrees. And over here you can check out this pie. If you have like a building over here to the west, the southwest, you would check that, and then it would not bring that target in if it's in that sector of the sky. Pretty cool. So you can, if you only have a northern view, then you would uncheck all of these. Okay, guys, you can't beat the simplicity of this. We're just going to leave it all at, so we just say apply, and let's see now SAR, which is the center of the Northern Cross and where the Butterfly Nebula is a pretty hot region. So how about we go there? And that has crossed the meridian, and it is dropping or lowering. So we'll go to, and the scape should just slew. It's going to be kind of like that. So now that we've got our target centered, we come up to the upper left-hand corner, click on the arrow, and now we come over to where it says guide. Now the guide is there. This blank graph comes up, so you want to tap on that. Alright, so here we are, and we're guiding now. So it went ahead and acquired a star, and if you look at our totals here, we're under an arc second at 0.73. That is our total error. So one thing I want to point out that you might find pretty useful is if you look over to the right hand side and you go all the way up to the top where you see the L and the bullseye, you tap on that. Now this is the calibration graph, and what it's showing us is that it was a real good calibration because it's pretty much in line with that cross that you see there. Now if you happen to have a calibration that's like way off, and it's like instead of like being level like that, the thing is up like this, you're going to probably want to redo that. And the way you redo that is you hit where it says clear, and it will clear the calibration. You start the process again and get a better calibration. It's always good to check your calibration just to make sure, especially if you're doing the longer focal lengths, because they require better guiding because of the higher magnification and the smaller field of view. So you're right on top of that object. So you got to make sure you've got pretty good guiding when you start getting into the 2000 millimeter Schmidt-Cassegrain focal lengths. Let's go into rotation. All right, that's a fun one. Yeah, let's do that. So the butterfly is not quite into frame. Okay, we got SAR or Sator in the center. But we really want to concentrate on the butterfly. So we're going to stop the caption. We're in live. We're going to get to preview. Okay. Exit the live stack. Okay. Now you can do this before you take your first sub or two, you know. And the way you do that is you come over to the sky map on the lower left. And as you can see, it's exactly framed the way we saw it. So once it gets on the target, if you don't like that, you can always slide the red over where you want it. And right there, I've got the butterfly right there. Okay, and then we hit go to. And now it's going to go to that position. and it will center it up. Okay. Once you get the object in the frame that you like and it's centered, now you can hit rotate, and now you can rotate it. So let's rotate it like that. Let's put it like that. So that's where it is there. So now we come over to frame, and we're going to rotate the camera. And with this built-in rotator, this is pretty easy. I undo this knob here, and I'll rotate it just a little bit, one way or another, like that. And then you're going to hit refresh, and it will show you where the camera is in relationship to the target. So it looked like we went in the right direction. So we're going to rotate it some more, like that. I'm going to hit refresh. And there, bingo. So once you got your rotation right, you lock it down, of course. We come out of this by undoing the frame. So you click on frame so you can come out of it, so you can get this arrow in the upper left. Click on that, and now let's go to live view, and now let's do a 300-second sub and see what we get. The joy and satisfaction you get out of this hobby is by figuring it out. Learn and have fun, because you'll get real good at this after a while, and you'll just be doing it. And you'll look back and you'll wonder why it used to take you a half hour to do a polar alignment when now you can do it in under 3 minutes. And there it is. So as you can see, we have Setar down on the lower right, and we have the butterfly, and let's clear this up, nicely framed in the middle, like it's flying up. And that's only one sub, and that's in town. All right, well, that's going to do it for this workshop here. And like I say, you're going to want to check out part 2, where I get into some other aspects. Until then, take care. Thanks for tuning into the channel, and y'all be safe. Clear skies.